word tataya. Tataya is bangka in Ivatan language. Again, this is from the island of Itmaya. Hola, tataya, kwandang kakuy, Dorian Inanyaya po apiarya harian du aruan. Ipanyunu muda amaka hai du haraya. Ola tataya kwandang kakuyang Dorian Stepping into the smoke that climbs the mountainside, carrying in its jaws the memory of fire, we vanish. Stars flicker where the sky's blue dome catches the smoldering mast. Then emerge, cloaked in silver ash, the sun's rays lancing our throats into beads of flame as we chant the world into daybreak and dreams. We found signs in the entrails of wild boars as our holy women read the slaughter that darkened the tips of their fingers red and manacled their wrists in scripture. We chose to live, even though we knew enough of what was to come, or at least what we would become, in order to witness their arrival. Let me tell you how it begins. Our children run from the shoreline, chased by the last trace of starlight in the sky. My daughter turns to me, cupping a spear of moonlight in her small palm, samorang. Our footsteps pursued by echoes as we leave the shallow mouths of coral, empty in our wake. Water rocks the hull of the ship, and the dark night comes on the waves that pound the dark wood, taken from the jungles of the people of jade, the people of jaguar. The men sleep or fight to sleep or smoke the coarse leaf tobacco with jars of water at hand for threat of fire, for threat of dreams of fire-breathing beasts who lash the sides with vengeance pulled from the depths of the ocean. The maps and compass, spyglass and rope measure the immeasurable, assess territories of wealth, list what is infinite and unknowable. The men dream of rich goods and silk and land and sea, trunks filled with chocolate, pearls, chains, and leaves starved of sunlight. They dream of fire and awake to the damp air caught in the throat, cough to awake to the dark night that comes on waves against the dark wood, taken from the hands of the people from the jungles of jade and jaguar as the ships move west, leaving the water of the bays, rocks, and current into the open sea along the current that take the ships from the islands, the coast of the known world into the waters of open sea. There, who the Jesuit described as a man who expressed himself effeminately. This is also the aspect where we had room for everyone in our societies before, all different gender expressions, all different sexualities. We not only tolerated people, but we revered and honored people with different gender expressions. And this Jesuit priest wrote about this informant as a mute, so someone who did not speak verbally, right? So I thought it would be interesting to try to imagine this experience from the point of view of the Baybayin, and to allow that figure in our history to speak for themselves. So this is called The Baybayin Speaks. When you have told me all that you desire, to know the cost and creed behind our laws, I will beckon and conjure in these hours the thunder of a mute and all its fire. It's true my hair is braided to my waist, my shoulders dip and sway in lethal runs. I am the wicked variant I have become, all you fear in what your God mandates. And yet I know the prayers on sea and land, the ones you've brought, the ones you've sought to burn. The hidden blades rise at my command. Is this not what you've come to learn? My lips have moved, but silence is my reign. The earth grows parched. You will be back again. A lot of these poems went through many revisions and changes. I'm sure many of you are writers as well, and that's part of the process. Some of these poems even go back with their original inspiration to 20 years plus. Many of them are more recent. But these ones, the Baybayin poems, went through many revisions. I kept struggling with trying to find out, how am I going to facilitate, how am I going to access these voices from our history, these omissions, these silences in our history? How do I do it respectfully? How do I do it in a way that people will understand? And it went through many different forms, but it was not until I found this particular form that the voices really spoke for themselves in a way. And if you notice, in the poem I just read, there's a certain rhyming pattern. It's 14 lines. It ends on what's called a couplet with a rhyme at the end, a certain rhyming scheme along the way, and that is called a sonnet. So that's a sonnet. And what's interesting when I was exploring that is, sonnet is a traditionally Italian form, but it was really brought to the English language by who? Shakespeare. And when was William Shakespeare writing? When did he make the sonnets really into the public imagination and really maximize their power to just talk about love and to talk about nature? It was that last decade of the 1500s and the first decade of the 1600s, the exact same era I'm exploring in this book. And so I thought it'd be interesting to use that form, that very European form, and what would it be like to have our native leaders speaking through that form? Could they find freedom? Could they find expression? As we are doing when we use another language, say an English language or a language that's not native. So this next poem is the partner to that first one, The Baybayin Speaks. This is called The Baybayin Speaks 2. It's written in that same form. And it's also based on a historic account in Zambales region, which is in Luzon area. And this is when Spanish missionaries went to our Baybayin leaders and confiscated, took by force these spiritual artifacts used in worship, seized them and suppressed the native religion. And this again is from the point of view of the Baybayin. This is called The Baybayin Speaks 2. When they came for our tools of faith, we did not flee. There was nowhere to go. Instead, we hid the most precious beneath our skin and bid the rest farewell. The war became for memory. They lined us up and cataloged in fine detail all they would destroy, what would be lost. We learned to court oblivion until our chants became the echo of what was lost. Their God demands surrender of our dreams. But how can we ignore what calls our names in dreams? A few of us, ragged and too lean, went where they do not dare. to chase the dust mustard wings in flight. Perhaps the last medicine that can save us, to witness escape with our own sight. As I went through all these documents and archives, one of the most fascinating documents is called the Boxer Codex. It's a document that was written or originated around the 1500s, and it has beautiful, colorful illustrations along with brief text exploring the mythical animals, the people, the cultures, as well as the nature and flowers and plants of not only the Philippine region, but whole Southeast Asia and into the Pacific. Throughout this book, there are a series of very short poems that are modeled after the Boxer Codex. And these poems imagine additional hojas, or leaves, of that book. And I'm going to read for you a few samples, and you can see the very short three-line poems that go throughout the book that explore different aspects of this history. They believed in their spirits with a devotion that we held must be destroyed. She holds twin blades to the sky, bird talons poised above a rising moon. Ink renders our skin into darker leaves of illumination. To please our women, we pierce our flesh into arrows of pleasure. This book composed of bloodshed and war, gold lines on thin rice paper. That's called a kubing. So Maguindanao, but a lot of different regions have something similar. Excuse me. I started off the first set by reading a poem called Daybreak. That's the one where it's from the point of view of a mother who is witnessing the arrival of the first explorers coming to the shore. It was very important in this book to be able to make a space, make a place where people from the original communities in the Philippines can express their experience. Our books and archives and papers and history is filled with accounts from the point of view, of course, of the Spanish, Portuguese, other Europeans, the Americans, the Japanese, etc., etc. All the different series of occupiers and invaders. But I wanted this book to point towards the space that we have for our own communities to speak for themselves. So the first poem earlier is called Daybreak. It has a partner in the book that comes near the end. And this one is based, or it's a response to the Spanish policy during that time, that they found because these revolts that we heard about a little while ago, and these resistance to colonial rule, because of that, they imposed a reordering of the urban landscape and the rural landscape, where they took communities down from other places, brought them to central locations so they could be surveilled, watched over, controlled. It happened also in the region my family is from, in Batanes. Our used to be, or traditionally, our communities are located up in the mountains along the rivers and the forests, and we also, like many, were brought down from the hills to the coastal areas centered around the church and the barangay, or municipal area, political power. So this poem is in response to that policy, and what would it be like for our ancestors to experience that radical change and devastating change to your daily life and autonomy? That first poem is called Daybreak, and this one is called Nightfall. We own our own hands no longer, betrayed by the sudden strength of stone and wood and iron. We lived by the river, the ocean, the forest that covers the shoulders of the mountains in endless green. We knew which trees held shadow sap and which bled ruby red from their veins when cut at the stem. Where in the cliffs the colony of bees went to sleep, and when to lower our bodies in mid-air to gather the dark, sweet treasure. We had words for these things when the wind shifted southeast or a warm day slipped quietly into rain, how the rocks changed color after the morning dew. At this place where we were born, our ancestors visited us, and we called to them when our children fell ill, when we faced hunger or were stirred awake by strange dreams that showed us what was to come. They arrived with their armies to take us from the river, from the forest and the mountains. Some resisted and fought or fled. Others traded or bargained for the lives of their children so that a few of us would survive. They had us build houses of worship, drawing up stones from the rivers, pulling down trees from the forests, firing the kiln, driving the ox. Clasping our hands to our chests, we dared wonder but not ask. Who would remain to hear of our return? Ears humming with the sting of heat. Only the whistle of the lash, our new language, as we cut rows into the valley of earth. You doing okay? Yeah. I'll just read one more. As I've shared with you this afternoon, a lot of these poems, the whole book really focuses on the past, on history, what took place before. But the past and history is only valuable, I think, if it helps to clarify and bring meaning to the present and helps direct our actions in the future. Excuse me. I think when we talk about these topics of colonialism, of survival, and so forth, what's always important, I think, to me, to bring that meaning from the past into the present is when we find ways to assert ourselves, rediscover ourselves, and rediscover our connections to one another. Whatever activity you're involved with, if you're trying to find a way to reassert that identity or rediscover your connection to your ancestry, your family, or your community today, and find a way to resist, I think that is our calling for today. And gatherings like this are an important part of it. Coming together to talk about the truth of what's happening to us today, to talk about what we can do to make our world better for our children, for our descendants, for tomorrow. So we've spent the time talking about the past. And I want to think about what does this mean for the future. So let us turn to the Almanac Filipino. The days to come could bring good fortune or ruin. It depends on El Sol, Mercurio, Venus, La Tierra, Luna. This year, the stars of Pisces will enter the house of the sun on 18th of February between the masts of Toledo and Córdoba. The tides will peak at 22:41 hours, 6 days after the final Sizija of the month of March. The sun will reach its zenith above the heads of the inhabitants of these islands on 21 June and last for 12 hours and 52 minutes. The night will be the longest and deepest on 22 December and last for 11 hours and 8 minutes. We are entering 264 years since the founding of Manila, 314 years since the discovery of Islas Filipinas, 343 years since the conquest of America, 2,587 years since the founding of Roma, 4,103 years since the founding of Madrid, 7,033 years since the creation of the world. The listing of the kings from antiquity to our current year, in the order of their dates of death and periods of rule, include Rey Philip II, 1598, and the Feast of the Saints to commemorate all the stories that commune on our tongues, then dissolve and become our spit and speech. Do not forget how they came to these shores. buscándolas en una dirección nueva, que debía principiar por abrir un paso a la Mar del Sur el 10 de agosto de 1519. Do not forget what came next. Karahasan, kapalaran, kalayaan. The days to come will, in time, reveal luck or our misfortune. It all depends. Maraming salamat. It can be, we have a tradition called kayun, which is done before the wedding, where the two parties, the groom and the bride, come together and they do a laji. We have a work song, we have all different. The one I will share with you is from the island of Itbayat, and the singer is Aurelio Ponce. And it's a song of longing, it's a song about the ocean, it's a song where the speaker is describing something or someone that they're searching for, and they're calling you to help them find it. And you'll hear a couple words in here, hawa. Hawa is ocean in the Itbayat language, and then the speaker says, help me find the siren. Siren is a hook, like a fish hook. Help me find the siren in this vast ocean. So it's built on a metaphor. It's like an endless quest, to find something that's difficult to find. And then they say in the ocean, in the Dinem, they mention Dinem, which is a distinct island in the ocean. So you'll hear those as well. Katayog borini kakaviyay Taihay sapsapan uhawa dudino Asapan tasiya usimadu sairin Nihawa tumayil Aya katayog borini kakaviyay Taihay sapsapan uhawa dudino Asapan tasiya usimadu sairin ni amay tumayil. Naurita na.